So what I want you to do now, there's 6 questions left on page 3 and 4. Pick 3 of them to do out of B through G, and then you can come back and I will be going over those. So pick 3. So answer keys posted online as well. I don't like the way that I did these on my answer key. I like the way that I showed them when I was teaching, but ultimately the solutions are going to be the same. You end up with cosine 45 and minus sine 45 or minus 8i sine 45. You do some distributing for B, that's what you should get. You can check your answer the way that we showed before. For C, you do some conversions, you get 150 degrees, and then it would be negative cosine 30 or and positive sine 30. You do some distributing here, negative 2.1 square root of 3 divided by 2. I simplified this. You don't need to. This could be 2.1i divided by 2. That's fine. D, both sine and cosine are negative in the third quadrant. And the value of 45 for both is the same. You distribute, you end up with that. E, you convert cosine 240, sine 240. Cosine is negative in quadrant 3, so is sine. So you're negating both of those values and then distributing. F, cosine is positive in quadrant 4, sine is negative. Distribute, you end up with this. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so that's why that 3 is in the numerator. And I really like G because it gets into quadrantal angles. So this is just going to be negative 1 for cosine of 180 and 0 for sine of 180 using the unit circle. So that part of the lesson is converting from polar or trigonometric form to complex form. What we're going to do in this next part of the lesson is do the opposite. We're going to convert from rectangular form to trigonometric form or polar form. So we're going to go from a complex number to this r times cosine theta plus I sine theta. So steps that we're going to follow, we're going to graph the vector so we know what quadrant we're in. We're going to find r by using this formula. We're going to find tangent by using tangent theta equals y divided by x. Why are we using that formula? Because we have x and y. We're going to do inverse tangent. Just like we did, we won't plug in the negative. We're going to end up with one of these reference angles. We're going to need to get it into the appropriate quadrant and then get theta either in degrees or radians and then write your angle in a certain form. So let's take a look at part A. 2 minus 2i. So x is positive, the y is negative, so positive, negative. This vertex would be, what is this called? Vector would be in quadrant 4. So in quadrant 4 we are, x is 2, y is negative 2, so plug in here. The radius is going to be 2 squared plus negative 2 squared. Underneath the square root, I'd plug that in the calculator, you get 8. So r is the square root of 8. Now we need to find theta. We're going to use tangent theta equals y divided by x. Negative 2 divided by positive 2 is negative 1. You don't have to simplify. You could just plug this in the calculator without the negative. Theta is 45 degrees. Now we're going to work backwards and figure out, okay, what is the angle in quadrant 4? So if we have a 45 degree reference angle, so 360 minus the 45 is 315. And now we're going to convert this to degrees, multiplying it by 180 divided by pi. In the calculator, we'll do 315 divided by 180 and get 7/4. So r is the square root of 8, cis 7 pi divided by 4. You can write this in the long form where you don't use this. You could go cosine plus I sine. I'm just showing you an option there. You don't need to necessarily write it specifically in that form. Let's look at one more on page 6. If we take a look at, let's go H. If we graph this, the x is negative, the y is positive, so negative, positive. This vector is going to be in quadrant 2. So x is negative 6 times the square root of 2. Y is 6 times the square root of 2. Notice I is not part of that when you figure out what y is. So when you're finding the radius value here, there's a lot happening you can just use your brain or your calculator. Negative 6 squared is 36. Square root of 2 squared is 2. So this would be 36 times 2, which is 72, plus 72 is 144. So you get the square root of 144, which is 12. So I would just be plugging this in the calculator, not the square root, because you're not always going to get a perfect square. Tangent theta is y divided by x. So 6 times the square root of 2 divided by negative 6 times the square root of 2. Again, you can simplify this, or you could just plug this in the calculator without the negative. It's going to be negative 1. So your reference angle is 45 degrees. We need to work that into quadrant 2. So 180 minus 45 is 135. In radians, multiplied by pi divided by 180 degrees. So you're going to end up with 12 cis 3 pi divided by 4 for your solution here. All right. So what I'd like for you to do, there's 6 questions to practice. Pick 3 of them and do them, and then check back in with the answers. Why don't you pause the video now and do that? All right, just taking a look at these. B, your radius is 2. When you do inverse tangent here, remember, do not plug in the negative. You get 60 degrees. This vector is in quadrant 2. It says degrees, so 2 cis 120. C, very similar, with the tangent being negative 1. Your radius is square root of 200. You can simplify that and put it as simplest radical form or not. You end up with the square root of 200 cis 135. D, I really like D. D is kind of unique. You're going to end up with x is 0, y is 5.2. So when you graph this, it's just on the quadrantal. It's a quadrantal angle of 90 degrees. So you're not going to be able to plug this in your calculator to get 90 and then just convert it to degrees. E, your radius is 10. Tangent, you don't have to simplify this. You could plug this in the calculator without the negative to get the 300. F, same kind of idea. You don't need to simplify this to that. You could just plug this in the calculator without the negatives to get the 30 degrees. And G, same kind of deal. Just be careful with the radius. Make sure you're plugging what's underneath the square root in all of these just in the calculator by itself to get, in this case, 100 square root of 10. 36 with the square root of that is 36. So that's switching from complex form to rectangular, to trigonometric or polar form.